My daddy was a ragtime trombone player. My mammy was a ragtime cowboy. Then that one day out of tango kid, there was a single little wind.
Welcome back to Death Watch's Call of Cthulhu campaign, Descent into Darkness Season 2. This is episode 27, and last time we left off, Dr. Andrews was laying low in one of Whitmire's safe house with the lawyer James Clark, trying to evade the Dark Hunter, while Mr. Monroe and Mr. Whitmire had gone to explore the dream surrounding the mound, and we left them in a very precarious position.
With Dr. Call?
Yes, with the good Dr. Call. Before we get back into that, I'll have the investigators introduce themselves.
Brandon playing Dr. Andrews, as he said, currently holed up, trying to hide or escape from the Dark Hunter, who's either trying to kill me or the lawyer.
I'm Justin. I'm playing Lance Monroe, who right now is trying not to crap his pants while staring at an ancient evil deity.
I'm John playing James Whitmire, and I'm also in front of this ancient evil.
Okay, so our scene opens up in this warehouse that Whitmire had deposited. Dr. Andrews, the lawyer James Clark, and your guardian angel, Mr. McCracken, who you can see stands at the door with his shotgun ready, Dr. Andrews. And you're looking at your timepiece. Do you carry a timepiece?
Yeah, a watch.
Probably couldn't be a doctor if you didn't have one.
Yeah.
And you can see that it's past midnight, about 12:30. You're starting to feel tired as the adrenaline from the events, your flight from the Dark Hunter, is leaving your body, but you're not quite ready to go to sleep yet because you're concerned about James Clark, whose wound had torn open in the flight from the Dark Hunter. So you've been tending to him, and you're sitting there at this moment. And let's begin with both a luck roll and a power roll.
I failed both of them.
See that? Okay. So, can I also please have a hard spot hidden roll?
Hard success.
You did it.
Nice.
Very nicely done.
Okay, so one of the things that's happened to you ever since your flight is you can't keep your eyes from darting around the room looking for some point of darkness to begin forming, because you know these things can travel in this strange manner. That's part of why you haven't been able to sleep, is because you can't just, is that corner okay? Is that corner okay? And so you've been doing that, and sure enough, you see the telltale signs of the Dark Hunter. And when you last checked your timepiece, it was 12:45 a.m. But there it is. McCracken's not aware of it yet. James Clark is sleeping, and this dark point forms to the size of a fist. What did you want to do?
Well, so I'll shout out to McCracken, there it is, and start shaking Clark awake.
Okay. So McCracken swings his gun around, but from your perspective, it's sort of weird looking. It's like he did it at halftime, like half speed, right? Like he was stuck in molasses. Even the change of expression on his face happens in a slower time. But that's pushed out of your head as you turn your attention to James Clark and begin shaking him awake, and his eyes snap open, and you can see the shape, the size of the portal growing. Mr. Monroe, remember,
I remember.
It was a ritual that took some time.
Yep.
Okay. So you have another action. You've gotten James Clark awake. He's totally confused.
Yeah, so I'll just say, it's here, and I'll start dragging him
Okay.
up to his feet towards the door.
All right. So you make it over to the door just as this thing steps out. Once again, that's some combination of ape, crustacean, insect. You're not sure. It's disturbing to look into the portal. You have a natural instinct to avert your eyes. Of course, you could continue to do that if you wish.
Yeah, I want to see what else is back there.
Okay. All right, give me a sanity roll.
Failure.
Ouch.
All right, so that's a 1d6 on a failure.
Ouch.
That would launch you into a temporary bout of madness. But in your case, since this wasn't a spell or a book, this was the sight of a monster, you actually have the opportunity by failing an intelligence roll to ignore that.
Man.
You make all the necessary connections. You've come to understand this link to alternate realities. And that's what it's like staring into this thing. It's like a faceted prism where when you look into one side, you see all these reflections to infinity, these fractal infinite reflections. And there you recognize yourself, but different, different haircut, different style of clothes.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases doing things that you can't even put into words, like behaviors that don't seem to fit into the human experience. But beyond that, you also see a widening expression of yourself that you recognize to be the version of you that first saw the Dark Hunter appear in the basement of that university.
Mm-hmm.
And you're maybe calling out a warning or something to yourself. No, get out of there. Give up the mission. Go on and be a family man again. Whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. It didn't seem to hit it. But it's this knowledge of insignificance given the large number of yous that seem to be out there, and perhaps a stripping away of some fundamental belief of who you are, because you're seeing things that you couldn't possibly do.
Mm-hmm.
It goes against your moral standing, and that's what shakes you to the core and sends you into a bout of temporary madness. Now, since you're on your own, these don't happen in real time. There's not another player character around. These just go into a summary of what happens. So you're going to be plunged into this and wake up sometime later.
Oh, okay.
If in fact you do wake up.
Yeah, if I wake up at all.
So let me just see what that will be. All right. So yeah, your mind just blinks. It takes you to some space where all reality flees from you and you lose sense of time and self, and the scene fades there.
Oh, I was kind of hoping to see a Dark Hunter battle, one against the other.
Oh, right.
Or something of that nature.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's get a luck roll from you, Mr. Monroe.
Oh, starting out with the hard ones, huh?
Actually, never mind. Let's get it from you, Dr. Andrews. Just one more luck roll.
Hard luck?
No, just normal.
My luck has failed.
Your luck is not in.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
You want me to make a luck roll?
No.
Oh.
Not yet, anyways.
Okay.
All right. So in some distant place in the south central part of the United States, far west from where you are, in a dream version of it, perhaps, past the procession hall, between the columns into the dark space, is Mr. Whitmire and Mr. Monroe.
We did something dumb.
And you're standing before the might of Zagua, who's just sleeping where he's perched there. And from this basin came, what is it, a guard? You don't know. It's formless, and it's flowing across the ground. And the way it moves and bubbles and creates tendrils, there's like some unknown powerful action of yeast going on, the way it just bubbles forth. But it's coming across the floor at you, the two of you, and Dr. Call at an almost languid pace. So I think, Whitmire, you're our fastest. Is that correct?
I believe so.
With the dex?
You got a 70.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that beats Monroe.
Yeah.
Well, we got to begin with the sanity roll. I know you did the one for Sathagua, but you have not done one for his formless guard. But you succeed.
Me as well?
Yes, might as well get it out of the way.
Okay.
So on a success with one of these things, you only lose 1 point of sanity.
I'm just death by 1,000 cuts here.
Mm-hmm.
And it disturbs you in the way, if you've ever seen certain ocean life does, where it's just so far removed from the line of evolution that produced humans that it's just weird to look at. But you guys hold it together. So yes, Mr. Whitmire, you're standing there. I believe you have brought your knife and your bread and your water skin and mana with you, and the clothes that you had conjured up in the Dreamlands. But other than that, you don't have a weapon. What would you like to do?
All right, so I'm going to call out behind me is that we've got to go back, move back, and I'll start moving, like walking backwards.
Back towards the procession hall?
Yeah.
So Dr. Call has not completely lost his mind, and he hops to it at your suggestion to move back, and he starts to run out of that area, leaving the two of you initially. Mr. Monroe?
I'm going to follow him. I'm fleeing myself out of there. Just barely caught myself from letting out a stream of excrement of...
All right, so this languid movement of this thing was a deception. This is now it lurches across the floor and begins to form many different appendages that stretch out at you. And we'll say it's you, Mr. Monroe, that it targets first.
That's why you never run.
So one of these tendrils ropes towards you, but it misses.
Okay.
You just ducked under it, or it misjudged or something, and it goes across your head. You can smell like an acrid stench as the air from its movement wafts past you. But it also has another attack, which will go for Dr. Call. And so its other tendril that it had shot out wraps around Dr. Call's waist, and there's this smoking, burning scent that fills the scent of burning flesh as it's wrapped around his waist. And you see the clothes he was wearing suddenly pulls apart where that tendril's wrapped around him, and he starts screaming. Back to you, Mr. Whitmire.
I'm going to shout out now that we've got to wake up, and I guess I'll attempt a dreaming if I can to try and bring myself out of this.
Yeah, go for it. You only need a regular success. The state of panic you're in makes it impossible, but I'll allow you to do some other movement if you'd like.
So what would be the consequence if I pushed it?
Losing your understand, like that, your lucid sense of this dream and fully succumbing to its reality, which would infer that you would lose the ability to wake yourself up if you failed it.
I can always try again next turn, right?
Not if you... Oh, you mean with the dreaming roll? Yeah.
Okay.
If you don't push it.
Yeah, I'll just continue to back away.
Okay. Yeah, you can't really tell if it's ignoring you because you're moving in a more stately fashion than the other two, or what's going on, but it does seem to be flowing past you after Mr. Monroe and Dr. Call. So that brings us to you, Mr. Monroe.
So I'll try to do the same dreaming check, and
damn
it. So yeah, I'll wake myself up and as I yell back to Dr. Call, remember, it's just a dream.
Right. Well, for the rest of you guys, he disappears out of that area, and then you wake panting in your room. So let's see if Dr. Call can manage it. He needs an extreme power roll, which he did not get. But he continues his flight down the procession hall, and this thing flows after him, battering him with one of its tendrils again and again. Well, it's not doing good. But Dr. Call's evading him. Now, for you, Mr. Whitmire, you've been keeping an eye on mighty Zagua, where he sleeps for all time. And you can see the irises rolling around. They're unfocused. They're not looking at anything in the room. But then, as they roll past you, give me a luck roll.
Dang.
They seem to focus on you for one terrible second. And that maw of of Zagua's opens, and it opens kind of like a flower in a way. So it's not just a mouth that opens how our mouths open, but it has another opening. So it's like a 3-leafed opening to its mouth, and you see a prehensile tongue dart out all the way from where it's at to where you're at, and it tries to grab at you.
Oof.
How do we do? How would you like to respond to that?
What are my options?
Well, you could try to fight back in some way, or you could just simply dodge. Now, remember, fighting back, you have to achieve a higher level of success, so you would need an extreme success. In order to dodge, you would just need a hard success.
I'll try and dodge it.
Okay. Oh, nice.
Nice. We may not always get the rolls, but we seem to get them when we need them the most.
When it hits the fan, that's when start to get lucky.
Right. So you just slip. It gets you for 1 second. It was going to wrap around your body, but you moved out of the way, and it only tangled up with your arm. But you slip out of its slimy grasp, and you're moving in another direction, which brings us to your turn again, Mr. Whitmire.
So I wonder if I could summon Father here, watch a god battle.
You mean with your dreaming skill?
Yeah, I don't think it's that high yet. All right, so I'm going to try and wake up again.
Okay. Not this time.
All right.
And you hear the retreating screaming of Dr. Call as he's making his flight down that procession hall, being pursued by the formless guard. And this god, this toad-like creature, which stands maybe 3 times your height, whips out its tongue again. It had a regular success, So with that tongue wraps a hold of you, and you're squeezed. It's squeezed around your waist, but it's not begun to retract yet.
Push a dodge roll?
You can't push the combat rolls like dodge or you're fighting. The theory is that you get an opportunity to try something again on your next round, but it is your action. In order to free yourself from this, you'll need an extreme strength or dex roll, or some other brilliant idea.
Try and wake up again.
Okay.
All right. I'll use luck to finish that.
18.
Yep.
Okay. So your eyes snap open in the storeroom, and you're free of the threat of Zagua.
We should have gotten Dr. Call to get us into the asylum before we brought him here.
Now, in that same time, Mr. Monroe, you had only just gotten up to try to wake Dr. Call.
Yeah.
Or whatever you wanted to do, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been my next step would be to wake him, not realizing that Jimmy is actually just downstairs in my storage room. Sleeping on the floor.
I crawled up into some shelves.
Oh, okay, yeah. Still in my storage room.
As when you come in and there's a busted statue of this Zagua on the floor, I think maybe you'll get it.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what happens to Dr. Cole when you wake him. So he wakes up. When you wake him up, he wakes up screaming, and his eyes are completely unfocused on his surroundings. He doesn't recognize you, and he begins to go through the motions as though he's still within the dream, fleeing from this black liquid nightmare.
Okay.
So do I hear the screaming? From
yeah, you
upstairs?
hear a faint screaming from the apartments, yeah.
So yeah, I'll stand up and step back, ready to try and catch him if he tries to do anything that would hurt himself, but give him space.
Yeah.
It can be a little bit dangerous to try and hold someone that's flailing like that.
Well, that's what he does, is he pops up and he's starting to run in some direction.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try and, just get in his way.
Okay.
Not necessarily try and grab him or anything, but just stay in his way.
Yeah, he's a heavy-set man. He's just starts to pull his way past you.
Yeah.
And without some particular effort, then he just does push you to the side.
Yeah, I'll keep calling his name. Can I do like a psychology roll to try and get his attention, or some roll to try and figure out how I might be able to snap him out of it? Like he's not a woman, so I can't slap him like Dr. Andrews does. But
well, he's hysterical.
Actually, he is kind of a hysterical old man, so I might be able to. Yeah. So
yeah, you can.
yeah, I'll try and give him one good slap.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So you, before he gets past you, you wind up your hand and strike him across the face, and it does seem to have the intended effect. And he still has that horrified expression, but his eyes focus on you, and he's like, "Mr. Monroe, what has happened? Are we okay? Is it gone?"
I'll say, like I said before, it was a dream. It only happened within the dream, and while there was some danger associated with it, you're fine. You're back in my apartment. Everything is okay. You're okay. Check yourself. Feel where you had felt that it had hurt you, and verify that you're okay.
Yeah, he runs his hands over his body, pausing for a moment on his jaw, which you rubs from your slap, and and you can see he has like these dark circles under his eyes, like very pronounced, that you hadn't noticed before. But you might expect from your own experience that this damage you receive seems to take a toll on you mentally when you wake up.
Yeah.
So who knows? He was probably torn asunder or something, and that has taken a cost on him. But he's like, yes, I guess I am okay. I dare say that was the most frightful experience I've ever had.
Yes, I can agree with you there. That was quite the experience. And I must congratulate you, good sir. This is your first true encounter with a dark entity that we've been researching and learning about.
Well, thankfully it was only in dreams.
Very much so, yes.
Do you have anything to drink, Mr. Monroe?
Yes, good man. Yes, I certainly do. And I'll go get a bottle of gin.
All right, Whitmire, what's your move?
I'm going to head upstairs. There's a figure there probably up there hearing the screaming.
Yeah.
Either that or there's
you're at the top.
Hysterical woman that needs to be slapped.
You're at the top of the steps when the screaming stops. So you're right outside the door.
All right. So, yeah, I'll just I'll check the door and see if it's unlocked.
It would have been locked.
It is locked. You're going to pick it open real quick?
I might as well give it a try.
Yeah.
So I'll pop it open and walk in.
Yeah.
And say, that was a rather frightening experience, wouldn't you say?
Good. You're okay as well. Why?
I
thought I locked that door.
Why wouldn't I be?
I thought I locked that door. Kind of scratched my head and said, well, Dr. Call has come out a little bit worse for wear, but otherwise it seems as if we've succeeded on what we had originally gone to do in investigating that area.
Well, I would prefer that we stay away from that area, as one deity is enough, as now we're up to two. I don't really want to meet a third.
Well, I doubt there's a third one out there.
I don't know.
Well,
there's many
what
other
do we do
areas
from here,
we can go.
gentlemen?
Well, for the rest of this evening, I suggest we all try and get some actual sleep and rest tonight. I think it would do us all well. Gentlemen, if you don't mind, I am feeling rather exhausted and could use my bed and some real sleep.
It's good to see that you both made it out okay. I think that's a great idea, though. And I'm going to go back down and get back up in that rack and sleep there.
Yes, Mr. Monroe, I don't mean to impose, but I don't think I would sleep very well in that big house of mine all by myself. You don't mind if I take your couch for the rest of the evening?
Not at all, good sir.
And he gulps down the rest of his drink. All right, so with that, you guys retire for the night. And as far as it goes for you, Dr. Andrews, you just have the most wonderful, comforting dream of, your wife and your daughter doing something. They were taken by the flu.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah, doing, some family, very domestic thing. That's the furthest point removed from your experience recently. This growing knowledge of a cold world in which you're insignificant.
Yeah.
But you wake. Some hours later, you can see the light from the morning sun creeping into this warehouse, and Mr. McCracken and James Clark are nowhere to be seen.
Is this is where I was?
Yeah.
The same warehouse? Okay. All right. Well, guess I'll get up and start looking for any evidence of where they might have went.
Okay.
Do I remember what had happened before I went insane?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you look around the room and you see like signs of hasty departure. There was a table near where McCracken was sitting with his shotgun, and it's been tipped over. The door into this area was left open, and then you see the discarded shotgun on the ground outside of the door. But
Well, I'll pick that up.
okay.
You don't want to just discard shotguns.
That's true. And then you remember you were dropped off here by Whitmire.
Mm-hmm.
You can't recall if there was another car. You think maybe McCracken came in his, but it's gone now.
Okay.
So,
All right. So how big is this building?
it was pretty big. It was like a pure warehouse,
Okay.
and you guys were just in a portion of it, like a space used for the dock master or something like that to do his paperwork and whatnot. Is
Okay.
where you guys have been. So when you leave the room, you go out into the warehouse, and then they have these big open bay doors on the other side.
All right. Yeah, so I guess I'll just, search around for any sign, any blood, anything like that. No.
Yeah, you don't find blood or any sign of that the Dark Hunter got a hold of anybody anywhere in the warehouse or up to the street.
Okay. Is there any people around?
There's a sparse amount of people, other workers on their way to this dock. Seems to be unused currently, this pier, but there are workers walking towards other ones, longshoremen.
And McCracken's car is gone?
Yes.
Well, I guess, at this point, if I'm going to have to hoof it somewhere so I can try to make it back into town.
You still are in town. You're just
Home
along
anyway.
the banks of a river, yeah.
Is this a full-size shotgun?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really be walking around with that, so I'll just stash it somewhere.
Okay.
And I guess I'd want to make my way somewhere. Like, do I have any injuries?
No, you don't. Not any new ones, anyways.
Okay. Well, I just guess I'll head back to where I was staying so I can try to send some telegrams to get a hold of people.
Okay. Yeah, when you get back to the hotel you were staying at, there's actually a telegram waiting for you from Betty Williams, which she describes that she had gone off to confirm who the professor was, and she can confirm it was Ronan Jarvis, who had that public disagreement with William Murrow Jr. During one of the classes. She says he was the head of the anthropology department, and he had a reputation for being boorish and stuffy, but apparently the two of them got into it very publicly, and he was shamed in front of his whole class. She mentions that she saw Cole Bishop at the barn by chance when she was going across the campus, and she was going to wait around to see if she could talk to him. She had described him as he's a freshman, and he was a bit of a follower in your past conversations. So she was going to ask him about Murrow Beckett.
Okay.
But other than that, you don't have any other telegrams at your place.
All right. Well, yeah. So then I guess I'll just, try to send some to Whitmire and Monroe. Say something happened. I'm not sure what, but McCracken's gone. Clark's gone. Not sure what to do.
So yeah, we can say that you guys get that telegram upon waking and preparing for the day, which it is Sunday.
Sunday.
June 19th, I believe.
Man, I missed a whole day.
Maybe it's the 18th.
Okay. So I'm guessing that Annette brought it up to me, or probably as soon as we came down,
Yeah.
she had it. Then, of course, we're heading off to, was it O'Flanagan's?
Oh, for your morning.
For morning breakfast. And
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you guys usually do, but you get that telegram from Dr. Andrews describing that there had been an event last night, but he's not sure of its outcome.
Okay. Well, we have quite a bit to share with him as well. So I guess we'd
should
try and
go pick him up.
do our normal meeting. Did you actually sleep in my...
Yeah.
Okay. Nice storage room.
This-
So I'll
This is also
Since I don't
one of
know
my
where-
safe houses.
Since I don't know where your safe houses are, I'd ask you if you could go pick him up and meet at O'Flanagan's for breakfast.
Yeah.
Lafferty's.
Lafferty's. Lafferty's, not
Yeah.
Flanagan's.
Well, we're going to Lafferty's. He's going to Flanagan's.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna suggest that as well. That maybe get some coffee in Dr. Call and maybe some brandy, and I'll go pick up Dr. Andrews, and we'll meet you at the normal
actually,
restaurant, not Flanagan's.
Yeah, he would have been at his hotel, so he probably could have gotten to O'Flanagan's
On his own. Yeah.
or O'Lafferty's.
Does the telegram
You guys just
say that that's where he's?
Yeah, that's where
Okay.
we always meet, right?
Well, I
So
was
it's been
asking, like,
established.
does it say that you are at your hotel? Because I was assuming that you were still at the safe house.
Well, yeah, I would have said that I woke up alone. I don't know where, what's McCracken or Clark are, and so let's meet at the O'Lafferty's or whatever.
Okay. Then I'll just tell him that we should, let's just get in my car and we'll go down and meet him.
Sounds good.
All right, so we zoom to O'Lafferty's, to our usual spot in the corner near a window where you can watch the traffic on the street. And you are all gathered around the table, including Dr. Call, who seems pleased to finally be at one of these breakfasts with you all, as he's tried from day one.
You see what you have to
come
go
to these
through,
meetings.
right?
Yeah, he passed the test. He's gone face to face with an ancient evil and survived. So,
But he does have an unusual for him, a concerned expression on his face from last night's events. But he seems to brighten once the food is brought around and you guys are eating and talking. So there you all are. In a moment of silence, a lull in the small talk part of the conversation.
So yeah, I'll go over my meeting with the consortium and the ritual that we undertook that should stop all future attacks from the Dark Hunter.
How?
Well, with the help of the consortium, I summoned the Dark Hunter, bound it to my will, and commanded it not to do any future attacks on us.
When did you do that?
It was about 1 a.m. last night.
When you completed it.
Yeah.
And it was like 12:45 when it attacked me.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it had just come from attacking him.
Which is why I had kind of hoped to see some sort of weird time
Bending.
paradox where two Dark Hunters fight each other to...
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like 12:45 it attacked me, and I don't know where McCracken or Clark are. I blacked out. I don't know how I'm still alive.
Well, hopefully the other two are all right. You said you didn't find any sign that they were injured or...
No, all I saw was McCracken's shotgun laying on the floor, which I don't imagine he would leave willingly. But I saw no blood, no signs of struggle.
And his vehicle was gone too?
But his vehicle was gone, so...
Perhaps we should go check on him at his house.
Yeah, he might have escaped.
Yeah, I think finding Mr. Clark and Mr. McCracken should be one of our first things to do today.
Okay.
Oh,
There's another...
we
go
also
ahead,
need
Whitmire.
to get into that hospital and change those medical records.
Yes.
As well.
Dr. Call, would you be able to help with that
Because
today?
our deal with the consortium isn't really complete until we do that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think I can get you in there today. I already sent off the telegram and have arranged for Monday evening, as we discussed earlier.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Well, I'll
Nice.
threaten him with a steak knife.
Dr. Andrews.
It's like I faced a dark god. That doesn't scare me anymore.
I know we doctors are capable of unusual things, action-packed heroics, but
Yeah.
there's no need to get violent. One of the odd things about Mr. Monroe's story when he relays this meeting with the consortium is that they claimed to not be responsible for the Dark Hunter being sent after you, which does leave an open question
Yeah, if they're not responsible, then who is? Who else could? What is this ritual you had to do to bind it to you?
It was a ritual that had been found in a book that, well, first of all, it was in Corbett's journals. So the Church of Contemplation, or what is it? Yeah,
Starry Wisdom?
Yeah, they have access to it as well. Obviously, the Porcellian members do, since they sent it after Dooley. But as anyone that has access to one of these books could have done it.
Mm-hmm.
So it is possible that one of the Porcellian members found out that we were onto them and sent it after us, or...
I think it was probably Betty.
It could have been. I don't know what exposure she's had to it.
I don't know.
I'm also beginning to be more concerned about Johann. If the Dark Hunter has come after each of us, perhaps it's found him as well.
Oh, well, then he's dead, because there's no way he could withstand it.
Well, he may be a slippery old man.
Well, what's to stop more than one person from having the Dark Hunter bound to them?
I don't know.
And whose orders does it actually follow? And the first person or being that gave it orders, or does a new set of orders overwrite the previous?
Well, the Dark Hunter isn't quite like that. From my understanding, it lives outside of time and space in some way. So orders given at different times may happen differently than we think they do.
Yeah, there's actually an uncomfortable sensation growing in you, Mr. Monroe, discussing this topic, because as I had described, the forceful way in which the consortium gave you knowledge of the spell left kind of like a boil in your mind. But now it's more like a dark spot or a blight, like the knowledge is fading and certain details of the precise nature of the ritual are becoming obscure. But as you're reflecting on it, you feel one of these strands of knowledge in your mind break, but before it disappears, you are given an insight, like when you're talking about this outside of time and space. Like you have this impression of hanging in a void and seeing something in the distance that looks like a marble or maybe a frozen explosion, and you're not interacting with it in any way, but you can see it's very from one end to the other, as though it's just a solid, constant object, and you can focus on any point of it. And another vision that comes down is a luminous being. It doesn't seem to have any matter of any description that you would give it. Of course, you're not a scientist, but it comes into this gray space that you've heard described in your readings about the Dark Hunter and in other places. Some like a sky of coiling dragons and a gray wasteland, and this luminous being comes down into what you recognize the Dark Hunter as you see, and it seems to inhabit it in some way and then move forth into a portal. So you get this sort of uncomfortable flash as you're even thinking about it.
Okay.
Like when you came up with that concept of it being outside of space and time, that's literally what you get.
Okay. So I'll do my best to try and convey that in Monroe's words.
Yeah. But it there's nothing in that makes you certain you're even dealing with only one entity.
Yeah.
It's more like it's the way something's will is manifest. It's like a drone in a way. Like it's something sends a signal and then the drone goes out and does the thing that it's ordered to do.
All right. So, yeah, I'll try to explain it the best I can.
Very difficult without a modern understanding of things, though, in a way, right?
Yeah.
Like an electric impulse firing across vast distances and issuing a command to something that does have matter. But anyhow, yeah.
I wonder if I could associate it with like a ghostly possession of some sort. Like the hunter exists and something possesses it to go do what it wants it to. And that's the closest I can like really come to explaining what I did to it, that my will kind of inhabited it.
Yeah. Yeah, you could definitely relay it in those terms. And for those of you that dealt with Warren B. Eddy when he possessed Mr. Whitmire, it doesn't seem like you're dealing or you're beholden to the laws of physics in that case. Like, how did that even happen? So that's what you can kind of relate it to in a way. But it does sound like the ramblings of a madman. And Dr. Call is like, well, I think we should probably leave this topic aside. It seems beyond any of us to understand.
Yes, I wish I could put better words to it, but it's, all of us have experienced things that we can't quite express. I'm sorry. It's the best I can do.
And as for the other matter, I did send off the telegram, but I am awaiting word on whether or not that will be okay. I took some liberties. I hope you're not too mad at me for describing who you were and why you should be allowed a tour of the facility and a visit with the troubled young man. Mr. Monroe, I hope you don't mind, but I did say you actually attended one of Freud's lectures at Clark University roughly 10 years ago. Sorry, it was a small lie. I don't expect it should come up, but it just came out of my mouth before I really thought about it.
Well, that's good enough. If that's the only lie that we have to tell in this process, then all the better.
Yes, well, you see, the gentleman I spoke to is quite a fan of Dr. Freud.
So I would suggest you study up on that.
I do have the Freud book that I got about lucid dreaming, and so I can say that that's the focus of my studies.
Yeah. Yes, Dr. Milton Phelps is his name, the man my contact there. He's quite a fan of the free association method that Dr. Freud has pioneered.
What did you tell
the sitting down
me?
And that you're a young, well, not a young. How old are you, Mr. Whitmire? I forget.
26.
I did say you were a bit younger than that, but yes, you're a student here in Harvard, student in psychology.
Okay.
And
as long as I don't have to know anything about lectures I never attended.
Well, I'll have a chance to brush up on my Freud and my psychology tonight, but I think in the meantime, we definitely should try and find Mr. Clark and Mr. McCracken and make sure that we are still on track for everything else we need.
And then Betty sent me a telegram as well, talking about Professor Jarvis and his public argument.
Yes.
But also Cole Bishop, who was another one of the boys involved in this Porcellian Club.
Is that any relation
she described him
to
as
Eliza Bishop?
Oh, yeah, right.
Very likely.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, gentlemen, Dr. Call claps his hands. Shall we split our efforts, or what do you need me to do?
Well, Mr. Whitmire, after you spoke with Detective Nichols, did he say how soon he'd be able to get back on whether or not police reports had been filed over it's Merle Beckett it was Wallace Bowers that went crazy.
Yeah, that's the one we're going to see.
Yeah. So I think we need to check back with him to see if there are other areas we need to alter records.
He didn't give me a timeline on it, but I would imagine that since it was kind of late last night, he probably hasn't made much headway on it. Because I think that our timeline would probably fit, though, as see if he comes up with anything today or tomorrow morning or afternoon before we go and do the tour.
Yeah, we could check with him tomorrow. In the meantime, the only thing I can think of is to try and find Mr. Clark and Mr. McCracken. Although you also mentioned that you need to see Mrs. Williams.
No, I don't need to see her. She's just updating me on what she's found out.
And then didn't Detective Nichols mention something about a barn as well?
You guys know the barn is what Porcellian members call their clubhouse.
Okay.
Yeah, as I don't know. Like, I imagine we could go try and gain access to it, but I don't know what our success would be.
Well, for certain, we should see if we can find McCracken.
Yeah, I'm willing to check out what his house, the Order of the Silver Twilight and the can't remember the other one, the something of the unexplained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Society for the Investigation of Unexplained.
There it is. Yeah, those places. I'd check and see if
Who got a hold of Murrow Beckett's journal? When did we get that?
Wayne Nichols got it. He went to visit the parents.
Oh, okay.
yeah, he had given it to me, which if you'd like is handed over to you.
Okay.
Yeah, and in a brief sense, the journal described Murrow Beckett's initiation into Porcellian, meeting William Murrow Jr., what they bonded over matters of occult, but then the beginnings of a split in that they should be delving into these matters.
Yeah.
And then ending with allusions to a ritual around the time Mr. Dooley was murdered and his thoughts on that. Well, I did have one thought, gentlemen. You said that you and Mr. Whitmire, Dr. Andrews, you were attacked by the Dark Hunter a few days prior at the university,
Yes.
where you first met young Miss Williams.
Yes.
Now, you said you were uncertain if the Dark Hunter was after you or James Clark in this most recent event, but what was your impression of the encounter then?
Yeah, didn't it seem like it was after her? It seemed like it was after Betty at that, right?
Is that what you got out of it, Mr. Whitmire?
Yeah, as far as I can recall the sequence of events, it seemed like it was just trying to get through us to get to her.
Yeah, that's what I seem to remember.
And Monroe says he's made arrangements with the consortium prior to at least the most recent attack that puts you in good standing so long as you keep up your end of the bargain. Is this a signal of some rogue agent within their group? Somebody who's not playing by their rules? But why target you and Betty Williams? What do the two of you have in common?
Well,
Or James Clark, I suppose. We must throw him into the mix.
yeah, what does he have to do with it? Because what would we all three have in common? Nothing. I mean, we got the first attack when Betty was going to, so Betty helped us to contact Murrow Beckett through the radio. Then we got attacked.
Or she got attacked.
Right.
Perhaps it was, if I'm understanding Monroe's story correct, the ritual was a lengthy process, and that's what I observed, although I can't be certain as I have a gap in my memory from that night. I was watching the beginnings of it, and then I seem to have come to without any knowledge of the intervening time. But he claims it took the better part of an hour. So if it had been targeted at Betty Williams, the process would have been, begun before you were even destined to meet.
Although we also seem to see a time delay between when the ritual is performed and when the hunter arrives. We'd mentioned that that Wallace Bowers had gone insane, but he'd been committed days before the attack on Dooley.
The Dark Hunter is after me. So why? Doesn't care about Betty. As a matter of fact, I'm the one who got injured in that encounter.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't that because we had tried to put ourselves in its way?
Well,
Because I remember pretty distinctly that it was trying to move past us, and
yeah, that's
and
true.
then we engaged it. Or at least
So at this
you
point,
did.
So maybe the objective was to stop her from telling me something.
I'll reveal to
Well,
Dr.
Beckett
Andrews
was in contact with her through the radio, wasn't
that when we were talking with the consortium about who to put forward in place of what's his name?
Murphy.
Charlie Murphy, that they suggested you as the fall guy,
Oh.
and that they wanted you out of the way of their plans.
What did I do?
I'm not quite certain, but that was their suggestion before we offered up Wallace Bowers.
All right.
I have a theory, Doctor. As a doctor, you're, of course, incorruptible. And what do corrupt men do with incorruptible people that they can't manipulate? They remove them.
Yeah.
And yet,
But if they agreed to the other, then why still come after me?
well, perhaps there was someone else that you've been getting close to that has access to the ability to summon the Dark Hunter that would want you out of the way to stop their plans from being interrupted.
I think if we know
Betty.
who knows about you and what you're doing, then we can narrow the list of suspects.
Mm-hmm.
You also did speak with the coroner that had altered those documents.
True.
It's possible that he or one of the people that stand to lose quite a bit could have seen you as a threat.
Yeah, the coroner.
There is somebody that we know has a book that we haven't mentioned for a while, but did send some people after you, at least to try and warn you off, and that's Francis Walsh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought he was going to say me.
Well, besides you.
I just, for a guy like Francis Walsh, if there's some doctor causing him trouble, I would expect he'd just send some goons to
He did that,
take me out.
and then they got arrested.
Didn't they get killed?
Did they get killed?
Some people were killed on the night the big Italian
Yeah.
attacked it.
Well, so who knows what I'm trying to do? There's you, gentlemen, and Betty, and I wonder if Murrow Beckett is capable of controlling the Dark Hunter from wherever he's trapped.
It's very possible.
Because he wouldn't want us to put the blame on him where it belongs.
True.
If he still holds on to hope that he'll escape.
Well,
But Betty wouldn't want us to either.
Yes. Perhaps if we reach out to him again and let them know that we've specifically chosen to lay the blame at Wallace Bowers' feet, that'll eliminate their reason for attempting to get rid of you, and we can focus on other avenues.
Yeah.
well, I hate to be a coward. That's not in my upbringing, Dr. Andrews, but perhaps it would be best to walk quietly until we can arrange to have this matter with young Bowers finished, and then things can go forward.
Yeah. I suppose you're right. I should lay low. Unless you're responsible.
Well, how would that be? I don't.
And I stab him.
With your fork.
So it's
yeah.
It's just mid-morning. You know, you guys are having a cordial conversation. Although the topic is anything less than when Dr. Andrews just slowly slides the knife into Dr. Call's stomach, which is pretty horrible to imagine.
Yeah.
It wasn't me.
Although with the Dark Hunter, laying low doesn't really give us anything.
Well,
But-
maybe your command will work, and because again,
How do they know
it
they
didn't
weren't
attack
successful?
Right. Yeah, they might think that they were successful.
True.
So maybe I will just lay low and for a little bit until we get the message to him.
Maybe even if we played like you had gone missing, we let everybody else beyond this table know that, well, we sent you to this place, and then
Can't find me?
these guys had to flee in terror if we do find McCracken, and we don't know what happened to the good Dr. Andrews. And then we can see how the people around us react.
Well, in that case, heading to Mr. McCracken's home might be a good place for him to hide out.
Perhaps we'll find Mr. McCracken there. I
Yes.
dare say that would be a stroke of good luck.
Well, we can cross our fingers and hope for the best. If not, I'm afraid I don't know where we might find Mr. McCracken.
Well, I have a few messages and errands to attend to. Where would you like me to meet you guys next? Or
Well, perhaps meet at Mr. McCracken's house
Well,
this evening, maybe?
yeah, is that when we're going to go?
Well, I was thinking of heading over there almost right
Yeah.
now.
So, if he's not there, then there's no reason for us
Yeah.
to stay. So,
We can do like we always do and, check for telegrams. Like, I'm assuming Dr. Call will probably be heading to the order
yeah,
or to his house, so we could send telegrams to those two places. I also like to send off another set of telegrams to the places where I know Johann goes.
right.
So like one to his house, one to his where he's staying here in town.
Yeah, and I should also mention that you guys have the morning paper, which does have a front and center spread on
Ooh,
what you know to be the event that occurred.
So what's it saying about this Dark Hunter charging through traffic and whatnot?
Well, it's going with the only rational angle that it can come up with, and it was an escaped zoo animal. And it even connects it to witness reports from a previous incident on a tram in Boston. And the author coins the term the Boston baboon is on the loose. It's sort of tongue-in-cheek by the end of it. But there's no mention of what occurred in the police station, like a police officer lost the service pistol or anything like that. And there's no mention of any person of interest as far as Dr. Andrews or James Clark is concerned, or necessarily the particulars of him and apparently a man who was in a hospital. It's focused on what people saw in traffic and the different witness reports. And the official police statement is the investigation into the matter is ongoing.
So I'll pass it on to Dr. Colin, tell him that he has some more articles for his scrapbook of relevant and mysterious happenings in Boston.
And this is the Boston Globe, which is like the big paper. And he says, well, this confirms my belief that you can't trust the Globe.
Yes.
We know the truth of what happened, and look what they report. Boston baboon.
Perhaps we should pick up what was the article or the newspaper that he gets his.
Oh, the typo?
Yeah. Oh, the typo. Yeah, typo article.
Yeah. It's a quarterly publication. So you've read through the latest one, I believe, which has all kinds of articles, but none that have any bearing on the subject. Although some of what he talks about, because there's this whole angle of the flying cows seen in all over New England, and Gary Riggs maintains that these are actually a spacefaring race that are anarchists, and if we all just lived like them, we'd be okay.
Flying space anarchist cows?
It gives you a headache to read it, actually.
Yeah.
It's such an ideological scree that it's difficult to maintain it. His thoughts in your mind. All right, so breakfast is over. You guys are all going to McCracken's place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for Dr. Call, who has to finish his business and setting up this meeting at Danvers tomorrow. So he departs, leaving the three of you to take Whitmire's car there. And when you arrive to this hotel, the clerk there, stops you, and he's like, will you gentlemen be needing a room? It's not one you've dealt with before.
So, no, we're here to visit a tenant.
Oh, the name?
McCracken?
Oh, okay. Let me just go check with him real quick, and I'll be right back. So he goes off a ways into the hotel, and then he comes back, and he says that he'll see you, and he leads you to that room. And they're a very worried McCracken is. This time he only has his pistol. But his jaw drops when he sees you with the two of them. But he lets you in. James Clark is sleeping on his bed at the moment.
Okay.
Okay, good.
How did you get away from the Dark Hunter?
So he writes furiously for a time, and he gives you his version of events. And he says, well, once it was done with you, it didn't pursue us, and I thought you were dead.
What did it do to me?
It tore your arms off, Doctor.
So I'll check real quick.
Your arms are as intact as they were before that.
Like, do I see any new wounds? Like,
no.
Well, I don't know what to say, Mr. McCracken, but my arms, wiggle them around.
I'm not doubting what I see before me right now. I'm just telling you what the both of us saw. Mr. Clark will confirm it when he wakes up.
So, what, tore my arms up and then left?
We didn't stick around.
Yeah.
I shot at it a few times once you went down, but I thought you were done for. I'm sorry, Doctor. If I'd known you were alive and could regrow your arms, I might have begun to worship you.
The last memory I have is when it stepped out and I looked beyond it, and everything after that's a blank. I woke up all alone after having the sweetest dream.
Yeah, James called for you, but you didn't respond. You just stood there looking at it with a peaceful expression on your face. came up to you and tore your arms off like you were just a fly that some kid had gotten a hold of, and it's tearing its wings off. That's when I fired at it, raised its arm in defense, and we fled out the door. And I tripped, dropped my shotgun, but I didn't have the presence of mind to pick it up.
It's very strange.
Hmm.
I suppose hallucinations are always possible. We had been...
Well, we'd also discussed that the hunter exists outside of time, and perhaps my command happening at the same time it was damaging you somehow interrupted itself and made time flow backwards, or I don't know exactly how to explain what potentially could have happened. The consequences are staggering to think that something like that could have happened.
Well, clearly it was just a hallucination on their part.
Perhaps
My arms are quite whole.
Dr. Call didn't come with us, right? He goes do his own thing. Perhaps we should check you out physically. Have another doctor, look you over and make sure that nothing's amiss.
Oh, well, I suppose we could do that, although...
It's quite an easy matter to determine if somebody has arms or not.
Well, yes, but...
Don't need a doctor for that. So.
But see if there's anything else that's different about you in any way. Like, obviously your arm, your wounded arm is still wounded, and so on. But
well, maybe. But we have many other things to take care of. If I'm trying to lay low, I shouldn't go to a hospital right now.
True.
But I'll tell Finn that I'm happy to see that he's alive. I feared the worst.
Yeah, well, he's in a mortified state because he thought he left you while you were still alive. He just didn't see how you could be after such a thing, and he's begging your forgiveness.
Well, there's nothing to forgive. Obviously, there's strange occurrences. If something can crawl out of a hole in reality, there's no reason why it couldn't force hallucinations.
Well, that must be it. I tended to Mr. Clark as best I could, but you may want to have a look at him, see if everything is going well.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll be expecting to find him wrapped up in baling twine or whatever.
I'm going to be kind of surreptitiously looking at Dr. Andrews' shadow.
Oh, okay.
To make sure that it doesn't give off any weird lizard-like shadows. Because after hearing Finn McCracken's explanation of what he had seen, I'm starting to wonder if he became like one of those skin suits that the lizard people seem to be inhabiting. And
that's actually pretty smart.
So yeah, I'll be trying to watch out for that.
Okay. His shadow appears normal.
Okay.
Although you could give me an intelligence roll.
Although if you lisp, I'm shooting you.
It just doesn't occur to you.
So yeah, me being weird is not out of the ordinary.
Yeah. Quit looking at my shadow. That's rude. Yeah.
But one thing that does occur to you is that when you suffered your injury from the Dark Hunter, initially it was much worse than what the final result was. And you're not sure by what process that injury was lessened.
Yeah, that's true. Because even my arm, it seemed worse when it happened than it turned out to be. So, why?
Well,
I mean, if it can slow down time, if that singularity can slow down time, why can't it reverse it?
True.
And what, is that just a natural effect, or is something making that happen?
Well, it could be a byproduct of it being sent back.
And what would be the point of it coming and rip my arms off if it's just going to be undone anyway?
Well, perhaps
Maybe
what caused it to kind of go back is that it was disrupted before.
Yeah, maybe.
Like it didn't go back naturally in the way that it normally does.
Yeah, maybe
because obviously
you took control of it and it had to leave.
Yeah. Mr. Dooley obviously didn't get better after it had finished ripping him apart.
Right.
But nothing interrupted it. So perhaps we did interrupt it.
Well, anyway, there's too many mysteries.
Yes, and I'm afraid that some of these are beyond what my mind can comprehend right now. I'll have a few more skill ups, and we don't know.
Well, you looking over Mr. Clark, you can make your medicine roll.
Extreme success, so I cure him.
Yes.
That's what I say.
Well, you had stitched him up prior to leaving the lodge hall in that session you missed, and you're pleased to see that that's all held, and he seems to be healing well enough. You're sort of torn whether, given the threats you face, it's a good idea to send him back to the hospital, or any hospital for that matter.
Yeah, I mean,
Perhaps you should just...
unless I was 100% sure that it's not after him, I wouldn't want to do that.
Okay. So you are in McCraken's spot. Did I understand all your discussion correctly, and that this is where you want to lie low?
Yeah, if he'll allow it.
Yeah, he says, of course. So what's next? Do you need me to run out and get anything? He writes in his message.
Yeah, I guess he probably ought to stop by my place and grab my
Your weapons.
in case we need them, and some books that I have there.
He writes to Whitmire, I did get a line on some dynamite, or maybe that was Monroe.
Yeah.
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 A small amount, but if you need it.
Well, any amount can be useful.
Whitmire hands you his stick that he's still been holding.
That's lit.
All right, so he departs to do that, leaving the three of you and a sleeping Clark in his apartments. All right, Mr. Monroe, you've been listening to at least Dr. Andrews' side of the conversation with Mr. McCracken. And in some cases, it's trodden over the same ground that you guys discussed at breakfast, the mysteries of the Dark Hunter. But your attention is split because you had the Boston Globe. You pulled out that latest edition of the typo, and you were reading through that. And there is one article that does capture your attention for a minute that I will share with you momentarily, but I'll read what it says. So the headline was The Brotherhood of the Pig. The pathways to power are well greased by the hands of the rich and powerful. Our most prestigious institutes of learning are merely the means by which the princes of capitalism are confirmed in their destiny as leaders of the free people of this great nation. One only needs to look at the so-called final clubs of Harvard to see the degree to which every rise to power is predetermined by those who came before. The rosters of these enigmatic clubs are a veritable list of who's who in political leadership, artistic expression, and religious thought. One such member rose to the highest station of power in our government. That is right. The office of the President of the United States has been penetrated by these groups that seek to order the future. Ex-President Teddy Roosevelt belonged to these secretive clubs. I wish that I could tell you that this is merely a sign of men corrupted by power, but I am afraid it is so much worse. Yes, dear reader, you have heard me speak of the evolved race of serpent men who live in the forgotten subterranean spaces of Earth, biding their time until they can emerge as the dominant species and enslave mankind for all time. I am here now to confirm that this group is the true power behind these clubs. These are the places in which they direct the future, not with the warm heart of human compassion and love, but with the cold calculation of a snake waiting to strike. By powers beyond human comprehension, these evolved snake men walk amongst us. They could be your mailman, your ticket taker, your local legislator, your state senator, and yes, even your president. I do not tell you this so that you may hate and fear your fellow man, but so that you may love them unconditionally, and with the knowledge that, as it is and shall ever be, the true enemy of mankind is the serpent as it was in the Garden of Eden. The enemy whispers, you do not need love. You do not need faith. You do not need that which makes you human. You only need power. Reject it. Reject it, dear reader, with all your heart, and understand that humanity can be united. Your fellow man, be he Jew or Gentile, man or woman, and without regard to the color of his skin, is your ally. We must reject the serpent's whispers of perverse capitalism and raise our voices in a song of harmonious anarchy. So that's another little sample of the type of writing.
Why haven't they sent the Dark Hunter after this dude yet?
Yeah.
Probably because he's just a plant.
Yeah, and
He's controlled opposition is what they call it.
Yeah. Or normalization of the idea before they come out in truth.
There are no UFOs. There may be UFOs. Here's the military's reports on UFOs. Yep, you got it, Justin.
Yeah.
Anyhow. Yeah, so that you just read through that, and obviously it's colored a little different by what you have gone through, but, he, as is often the case, people who speak the truth invalidate themselves by being absolutely crazy in the way in which they convey it. So, and anyhow, you guys are left to your own devices in that room to do as you wish, and I'll put the ball back in your guys' court. If at all you want to do anything today, you could just have a reading day. Read your tomes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what I'll be doing because I'm trying to lay low. So,
I still need to get the Grand Grimoire, my Liber Ivanis rebound.
Yeah.
And then, so I have the actual Liber Ivanis and return the Grand Grimoire.
Right.
So I suppose that's something I could do.
Yeah, they can do you can find a place that does binding. They can have it for you the next day.
Well, I'm going to be fairly insistent that I be there the entire time.
So that's good.
Because not only do I not want them to have it completely in their possession, but I don't want them to begin reading it either, because that could go down a bad path.
Okay, yeah, so you can definitely take care of that, but we'll just have it play off in the background. Well, actually, the guy does push back when you find the book binder. I don't know. I suppose you would go to a publisher or something to track down who would put it together.
In this
Maybe
case,
you
there
could
might
find
be
a local,
and I would like it bound in like high quality materials and whatnot.
But he insists. He's like, "Well, I don't want you to just stand here while I'm trying to work. That's very odd." So maybe some persuasion would be in order.
Yeah. Let's try a good old fashioned persuade. Yay! All right, so I'll just express to him, this is a family heirloom. I want to be here to make sure that it's properly taken care of. And
all right, yeah, he's like, okay, just don't get in the way, please.
Very well.
And for you, Mr. Whitmire, you have that book, The Nameless Cults, and mechanically you've completed what's called a skim reading, but you can begin what is referred to as a full study, which is measured in weeks. So you can, knock a day out, get a day into that. And just, it has a similar effect of completing your skim reading where there is sand loss at the end of it, but there's also more Cthulhu Mythos skill gain. But just so you know, that occurs at the end. You're safe to read it right now for a day.
Okay.
And you have the Book of Obermelin that you've been going through.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then, other than that, your day passes without event. You put him under a time crunch, and he gets the binding swapped where he initially said he could have it for you by tomorrow. You being there, he just wants you out of his hair, so he works quickly.
Good.
And has the bindings changed out, and you have your concealed copy of the Liber Ivanis by that evening. And no other messages come in that day for any of you. Although I think Monroe had sent a message to his apartments.
Andrews's?
Yeah, you and Dr. Call, you had sent a message back that they had missed. I suppose it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It was just a missed opportunity. So yeah, we'll fade on the day, go on to the next one. Make sure your MP's all full. Or I should ask, did you want to plumb the dreams some more?
I'll discuss with Dr. Call. Like after we get everything done, then I'll reach out to Dr. Call and Whitmire and even Dr. Andrews to see if they want to investigate the dream some more.
Well,
which dream?
What's
the dream of that we nearly got killed in last night?
I need to figure out what's going on with my wound.
Okay. When you check the bandages, it seems to be healing normally. I mean, you have to clean it off and rebind it. Healing is measured in weeks at this stage. So at the end of this week, you do like a constitution roll, and that determines whether or not
Okay.
you get hit points back. So let me see where you're at on that. I think you're still
Yeah, it hasn't been a week yet.
same with you, Mr. Monroe.
Yeah.
So for Wallace Andrews, your major wound was taken on the 15th of June, and therefore your con check will be on the 22nd, I think. Yeah, around about 21st, 22nd.
Okay.
Yeah, mine happened, the day after?
Yeah. So yeah, it's just the slow process of mending.
Yeah.
Nothing unusual happens with it. And occasionally I might have some event occur because it's behaving a little oddly. But unless you try to manifest something again by reaching your hand out and touching your companions with your oozing damaged hand, then...
Oh, I fully intend on doing that.
Do you?
Yeah. Well, I want to, learn more about that.
If he mentions it, I will happily subject myself to an experiment using it.
All right. Well, the scene is you guys are back at McCracken's. It's later in the evening after Mr. Monroe got his book rebound, and you're sitting around. You've taken the bandage off your hand, and you're sopping up all the oozing stuff that's coming out of it, making sure it's nice and clean, and you're getting ready to bind it back up. But you're thinking about that odd vision you had.
Yeah. So, Mr. Monroe, as to your question, I don't think it'd be safe for me to check out the dream. Don't know when the Dark Hunter will show back up, just in case you're not the only one that has control.
True.
But you see this disgusting arm of mine? I have visions when I touch things with it. Do you want to see what happens if I touch you?
Yeah,
Surely, yes.
For someone of your constitution, that is worth a sanity roll.
All right. Okay, yeah. I've been around it enough that it apparently doesn't bother me.
Yeah, it's just gross.
But yeah, I'll that my curiosity is probably getting the better of me as well. But I'll say, yes, if I'm lucky, perhaps I'll share in the vision with you.
It was with this hand that I was able to remove the paper from the dream. Do you remember?
Yes.
When I woke up with... Well, it was because I touched it in the dream with this hand, but I also had a vision, as I related once before.
Yes. Yes, yes.
So perhaps I could read a vision of your future.
Well, by all means, good sir. Let's convey this experiment. Mr. McCracken, you of course won't mind watching over us while we do this.
He inclines his head.
Okay, and I'll reach out my hand as if going to shake your hand.
Shake
and
hands and...
Are you still there, Whitmire?
I'm probably like shaking a little bit.
Put my book down for a minute and watch
what they're doing. Yeah, and of course you were there when he had that vision and he was behaving strangely. But all right, so you'll need to pass an extreme power roll.
Okay, but I don't have extreme power.
You don't.
Failure.
Okay.
Yeah,
it doesn't. Nothing seems to trigger.
Wow, this is not working.
Unless you want to push it.
No.
But
doesn't seem to be working. Maybe because it's healing.
Maybe.
But next time I go in the dream, I'm going to try and pull something else out and see.
Well, if you happen to find yourself there,
what would have happened if I had touched Mrs. Nichols? If I would have brought her out where I am.
Well, if you'd like, we can. If you happen to find yourself in the dream, unwillingly, then perhaps we can do an experiment with that. As for you, Mr. Whitmire, what do you say to exploring the dream world a little bit more? Definitely not going back to the exact location that we encountered Zaguel.
Yeah, I'd be up for it.
Okay.
All right. So, are you going to try to direct yourself there with your dreaming skill?
Yeah.
But you can also retrieve one of your figurines ahead of time.
Yeah, I'll have one of the figurines, but I also do want to try and manifest before I go into the dream a length of rope.
Okay. All right. And I believe Dr. Call has a figurine as well now, so
yeah,
everybody there would be affected, assuming you're going to do it at McCracken's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, also give McCracken some instructions. I was kind of curious. Was Dr. Call like thrashing in his sleep when I woke him?
No, he was not moving at all until you woke him.
Okay. But I suppose I'll give Mr. McCracken some orders to wake us after a certain amount of time.
You can see Dr. Call looks very uncomfortable at the moment as well.
But I'll...
beads of sweat have broken out on his forehead.
I'll tell him, you don't have to accompany us if you don't want to.
Well, Mr. Monroe, I was worried about the Dark Hunter. Perhaps I should keep an eye out with good Mr. McCracken here. 4 eyes are better than 2, as they say.
Oh, very well.
And palpable relief exudes from him.
Yeah.
All right, so...
we did kind of throw him like into the deepest part of the deep end on his first journey.
As you guys are settling down, you enter your own dreams initially before you're taken to this field. You can try to create that rope, Mr. Monroe.
All right. Dreaming check?
Yeah, for 2 magic points.
Nope.
Okay. I mean, you do get it to manifest in your dreams. It just doesn't seem to transfer once you leave one dream session into another, or one scene into another.
I'd like to
gone.
try and manifest like a pistol.
All right. Like your 38?
Yeah.
So that one's worth 10 magic points.
Oof.
I only got 9.
Well, you guys should be full. You had a full day of sitting around reading, and magic points come back at the rate of 1 per hour.
Oh, okay. Nope.
Okay. So you and Dr. Andrews make a power roll for me again.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't want to participate.
The idol of Zagua does not care.
Look, I'm tired of rolling power rolls and not succeeding on them. And I expect you to do something about it. Because without players, you can't be the keeper. So.
That's true. And you need to succeed at least 60% of the time.
Do I need to roll a power as well?
Yes. Same with you, Whitmire.
Can I try and go in normally? Or is there just no choice?
No, you can try to go with your dreaming skill.
Nope. All right.
So yeah, it's beholden to your power. All right, so at least in your case, Mr. Monroe and Mr. Whitmire, you both appear in that field, although you don't see Dr. Andrews or anybody else for that matter. And as always, you're standing 100 yards away from the mound, 50 yards away from the windmill. And Monroe, you were the first to arrive. You were there for like 5 minutes, perhaps, before Whitmire just seemed to pop into existence. There's no materializing or slowly being there. It's just one moment he wasn't, and the next he was.
Okay. Suppose I'll wait around for Dr. Andrews for a few minutes as well.
Yeah, he doesn't appear there.
Okay. After we wait a reasonable amount of time, then just assume that he either didn't make it into the dream or that he might be somewhere else. Although I don't think we've had any experience where someone entered not here.
You have seen one time with Mr. Mueller, he was within the mound, and you seemed to wake him out of
that's right,
some sort of hypnotized state.
Okay, so I'll suggest that we check where I had seen Johann.
I should say you also saw the big Italian there, and
that's where I also found Dr. Nichols and the I forget his name, the other guy from the Society for
Thaddeus Grunwald.
Yeah.
So you signal to Whitmire to follow you. You guys head to the mound, and sure enough, you do see Dr. Andrews there, just staring at some part of the wall in a less than conscious state.
Okay. I'll disrupt his fugue state.
So his foggy eyes, he blinks, and then they focus on you, and now you're there, Dr. Andrews, within the dream. You're somewhere underneath the earth. You can tell by the roots hanging down from the ceiling. You see a bunch of smashed pottery lying around and a few carved figures, carved out of flint, it looks like.
Oh, I see. I've come here despite my wishes.
Yes, well, perhaps we'll have a chance to do an experiment with your arm.
Might as well make the best of it.
So, gentlemen, we have a choice. We could either continue on down through the ruins. I could take you to the point where I had seen that horrifying musical apparatus with the chair where I had seen those shapes and symbols, or we could go back up to the lair of Zagua and continue on a different path that may take us deeper in.
Well, let's go.
I suppose
No, go ahead.
it's all the same to me. I could show you where I found those skin suits, but that's outside and at the radio tower.
Yes.
I don't know if it's connected to here through some underground warren or not.
Well, we can hear the thrumming sound, right?
Yeah.
That he had heard closer up.
Yeah, ordinarily you didn't hear it in the mound, but it was when you first started to go down that it became apparent. But since you know it's there, you can tune your ears for it and hear it very faintly.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll mention that. Another idea that had occurred to me that, like, we'd always in the past tried to find our way to it through the tunnels, but I'm wondering if using some sort of a navigation skill, we might be able to work our way towards where we figure the underside of the radio tower would be, like work our way through the mound in that direction to see if these caverns link up with those.
Okay.
I don't know that it would be the wisest idea to go back towards Zagua's lair, because we don't know if him or that thing is still awake, as he was
True.
awake when I got out of it, the dream yesterday, this morning.
Yes.
One of the two. But the radio tower, I think, would be interesting because all that equipment was running down towards him.
Yes, and that large microphone was in the same chamber as him.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, you this has some bearing on a discussion that Dr. Andrews had with Murrow Beckett himself over the radio, where he described a situation of men in suits, the consortium, rolling out and setting up this equipment. And then after Zagua would have a feeding, he would make some sort of subsonic crooning, or at least that's what Beckett theorized, because he couldn't hear it. But Zagua did seem to do something, and they captured this in the microphone for unknown purposes.
So which do we do?
Well,
you gentlemen meant to come here, and I didn't, so there's no telling how long I'll even be, so we might as well follow your lead.
yes, and we did tell Mr. McCracken to wake us after a certain amount of time. I suppose we could go back to the radio tower and try and work our way away from Zagua down into these tunnels, or...
Well, now, when Betty was describing, or did I have actual visions of it? When we were talking with Murrow Beckett, her boyfriend, she described some area where he is, or he described it.
Yeah.
And it was had to have been close to Zagua, right? Because they were
Right.
feeding him. So we might be able to find where he's at, somewhere near.
That's what we had been attempting to do last time we came, and we actually ran across Zagua itself.
Mm-hmm.
But we did, we were trying to follow the radio to see if Mr. Beckett had been using that radio, but obviously that was not the case.
Well, I mean, I should point out that within the last couple sessions, you had drawn a parallel between this idea of the astral plane in occult writings, and it's possible with Beckett's situation, if he was physically taken there, then he might not appear here unless he was also dreaming here at the same time.
Okay.
It's wholly possible that he was fed to Zagua already
That's
as well.
also true.
Yeah.
So to the radio tower then?
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll try going a different direction.
All right, so you hoof out of the mound to the opposite side where you see the sloping land where it slopes into a hollow, a big broad valley, and the radio tower in the distance, and you make the journey across the unremarkable terrain with no sign of wildlife, no sound of wildlife, and in a short amount of time you find yourself outside this complex, and both you or all three of you are not certain if it was the same amount of time as the last time you made the journey here. It feels shorter almost in some way. But as you're approaching, everybody give me a spot hidden.
Woohoo!
I have extreme success.
You just had to one up me, didn't you?
Oh,
I get a hard success, so you got to get an extreme.
So Whitmire, you had just been looking in a different direction, maybe trying to get some sense. You're like, is there a town distant? You don't see anything like that, but you just miss it. But from far off to the north, you see, the two of you see a faint pulse of light running along the ground, or maybe even slightly underneath of it. It just runs in a line from somewhere off north into the complex, but then it's gone as soon as it came.
So could I kind of extrapolate that as like a ley line type of thing?
Well, since it entered your head, yeah, that's the first thing that occurs to you.
Yeah. So, yeah, I wonder if that's some sort of an energy source running along one of the ley lines.
Yes, that's...
Could be.
I don't know what you mean or said, but now what did we see?
Like a pulse of
Like
light.
we both see it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but is it like constant or is it gone now?
It's gone now. You might think of it like if you were putting a reflection from your phone screen on the wall
Yeah.
and you were running it across, it would be something like that. It just ran from the terrain off to the north, somewhere out of your ability to physically see,
Yeah.
along the ground towards the complex.
So,
And you lost sight of it once it went on the far side of the building,
yeah.
and terrain features blocked it.
Have any of you been off in that direction?
I don't believe so.
Well, should we
'Cause we should definitely go investigate it, though.
investigate its source, or should we save that for another time?
Well, I don't remember ever seeing anything like what you guys just described in any of my trips to any of the dream worlds. So I'd say let's go investigate it now. Maybe it doesn't occur very often.
What would you say, Mr. Monroe?
Well, if it is a ley line, then trying to track it back to its source may not even be possible, at least off into the distance. Tracking it down to where it...
Yeah, because what if we don't see it again?
Yes,
And we could go forever in all directions and never end up in the right place.
but we did get a general idea of where it stopped here, correct?
Yeah.
So I between the two choices, I would say that if we were going to try and find one, we choose this end.
Mm-hmm.
Just in a general sense, did it stop, once again, kind of abstracting where we went once we entered the radio tower? Did it look like it stopped about where we would find Zagua or anything else?
It stopped because you lost sight of it because the building eventually blocked its progress. So you didn't see its terminating point. You just its trajectory before you lost sight of it coming down the slope on the far side of the building would have been straight towards the complex.
Okay.
And then what it did beyond your sight, you can only imagine.
Only assume, yeah. Well, it seems to have come here. I suggest we continue on and keep our eyes open for anything that may be attributed to it.
All right, so while we're doing that, while we're headed that direction, then this is a time when I'll ask Monroe if he can explain to me what a ley line is.
This is
like
where
to
I
give me
shine.
some of the theory behind what,
Right,
you know.
Yeah, I'll put on my professor stance as we walk and speak at great length on theory of lines of spiritual power and how they travel around the globe and their points where they converge that are places of spiritual power and so on and so forth.
Yeah, the in-game date actually predates ley lines as a term.
Okay.
So they would have been referred to as sacred sites or holy lines
Yeah.
in occult writings. Because ley lines has a sort of convergence into pseudo-science where some quack geologists try to incorporate it into where like civilizations were built. You'd probably actually have early writings about that now. They would just be talking about holy sites or sacred lines. So yeah, while he's giving you the lecture, the breakdown of it, And you had just recently read through Murrow Beckett's, and he had an entry in there where Wallace Murrow Jr. Claimed to be the reincarnation of Ibon, and that all the lines were focused on him now. And so that kind of, is that the same thing? Are they talking about the same principle? Along with his lecture, they would have the theory crafting that him and Mueller had done about there being a bunch of these lines around Boston and all of these corpses that you guys have discovered that were interred using this ancient rite that kept them unnaturally alive. They were all buried on a ley line.
And had in there,
Yes,
being buried there, created sacred sites in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, but the question is, what's the source of this energy?
Well, it's a source of existence, natural spiritual energy, and so on and so forth. Typically would require a ritual to create places of power, and the ley lines would connect them.
No, I think it has to do with magnets.
It's a very good possibility as well. We don't fully understand them.
So Whitmire, you've
How do those things work?
walked ahead while the two are deep in this discussion, and you're at that gate around the complex with the padlock and the chain that keeps the gate that can be opened for vehicles to come through. You know it's a pretty easy climb. I won't have you guys check for fumble this time.
Yes, I was forced to climb this. Is that truck still there?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I try and unlock it again?
Like pick it
Yeah.
or dream. Well, you don't have your tools.
Can I try
on you,
and
so that would be difficult.
manifest them?
Yeah, but a thought occurs to you about like changing your poker hand in that one dream of yours. Maybe the lock picks would be entirely unnecessary, but you can still try to manifest them if you want.
All right. Well, I'll try and just change the dream then to where it's unlocked.
Okay. Just costs 1 magic point.
Yeah.
Nope.
Oh, I see. So I would like see him like what? Intently staring at the lock.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, no, it's locked. We just got to climb, and I'll just climb over it.
Okay.
This place
Once
seems
we're
a
on the
lot
other
harder to manipulate than the other dream.
Say, well, this is, if our assumptions are correct, then this is a real world and we're on the astral plane, which may be why it's more difficult. But I did want to, we've got the rational guy in Dr. Andrews that's listening to the crazy.
Astral, okay.
But I want to, like that vehicle's still there, right?
Yes.
I want to open it up and look for something kind of small and portable that I might take out of it.
Okay. Yeah, so you when you open it up, you see the left, like there's a coffee cup in there sitting on the dash and a couple other things. There's, as you're looking around, you actually see underneath the seat is an electric torch.
Well, I'll take that, of course,
Yeah.
but
And some road flares.
Now, I wanted to check if that crowbar that I took last time is back where it was.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll
yes.
grab that.
But I was looking for, I don't know, a piece of paper or something that he could carry in his withered hand
Oh, okay.
and see if it comes with him out of the dream. But
Yeah.
something that,
Well, hopefully we can find something more interesting inside.
yes, but just in case we were woken before then,
Okay.
might as well have something.
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
test it through.
there's various bits of paper required for like interstate travel and the necessary information on what's being hauled and whatnot. And as I said, this is a truck. It's got a canopied bed.
Yeah. I don't know if they had like registration or anything like that back then for vehicles, but maybe grab that or something.
We'll just say
lines.
that they do because I don't know for certain, but my default is just to go to with some parallel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a registration kept in there. Who knows? They probably kept their titles in their car. The car. Yeah. So yeah, you're able to get some small thing that he could hold on to.
Yeah.
James, what did you mean by manipulate the dream?
All I heard was, what did you mean by?
When you said that the dream is harder to manipulate here, what did you mean by that?
Well, there's another dream world. It's different than this one.
You mentioned it after smoking the Latakia.
Yeah, as you go through, you start out in in this place with what was her name?
Noshed in common thought, which you know that
Ah,
denied your entry.
So that's a different dream than this one.
Yeah, and then you
Yes.
go through a forest, and there's multiple ways to go. I've encountered a tomb or maybe a prison that had the same markings as the chamber that we found in Peru that was holding Father. And I've also me and Lance had found a town where apparently Mr. Merriweather had been before, as there was somebody that we met that gave us a little bit more info on that.
Yeah, Ulthar was the town.
Yeah.
And the person they met, his name was Robert Ramsden, and according to his theory, is he said that that place was like a photo negative of reality. In this way, the material world that we live on gave rise to consciousness, and he says that the dreamlands were consciousness that gave rise to a material world. So it's all very high concept, and you'll probably wake up and kill all these guys just to set order back to the universe.
No, that has answered my question. Thank you.
What I'm wondering now, though, is are these statues taking us into the place where Zagua is imprisoned, and that's why it's harder, because he fully controls this realm. 'Cause even last time we were here, I was able to get a couple things to manifest, but like the rope that we had, it just disappeared, as that didn't happen in
Monroe
the other one.
remembers that.
Yes. Those could be things that are just differences between dream world and dreaming in our world. But I'm afraid I'd have to do quite a bit more studying to.
So you
to
were
come up
able
with
to
theories.
just manifest some item based on your thought alone.
Should we attempt to show him?
Yeah, there's two ways that we've been able to make this work. As the first one is before you come into this dream world, in your normal dream, you manipulate and create an item and then try to bring it over with you. As that seems to be the easier way in most cases. It's quite a bit harder when we have to manifest it when we're already here, but doing it as a group seems to help. So just because we may need it, we needed one last time, is let's all focus on a flashlight in your hand. Or an electric torch.
I'll hold up the one I got.
Yeah, we found one.
We already did?
Well, we may not need that, but
A rope?
Perhaps a rope?
Yeah, we could focus on a rope.
So you're all concentrating on it?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So it costs each of you a magic point. Whitmire and Monroe can perform their dreaming role. In your case, since you have no training, Dr. Andrews, you have to succeed in an extreme power roll. Sorry for the power roll again.
Oh, yeah. We're not dreaming very well.
Nope. Like I said, it's a lot harder here.
Yeah, I think you probably just made all this up. Let's stay focused on the task at hand.
All right. So you guys have looked at the truck and got what you could out of it. So Dr. Andrews has a piece of paper, the registration for the vehicle, and a crowbar. And then you have the electric torch you grabbed.
A couple of road flares.
And some road flares. And you head off towards the installation itself, which, to remind you, you went into a central hallway which had many connecting rooms. Each of them seemed to serve some purpose beyond your understanding. As a 1920s individual, there were devices in there that you did not know what they were for, aside from the ones that had a kinship to modern radio equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you know, if you go to the very end, you would exit out the back right by the radio tower, where it had that almost electrical hum that you didn't hear so much as you felt in your body. And then you had the descending stairwell that you know leads to the procession hall.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that rail goes around to the cold storage room that Dr. Andrews has spoken about. And the procession hall leads to death.
As we found.
And Zagua.
Well, at the very least, a terrible flea for everyone involved.
Of course, there is the wall of gate boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Once again, I'd like to try and take note of a few more symbols.
Okay.
As part of my ongoing, trying to
Yeah.
learn.
You and Whitmire are hard at work at that. So for the future, you'll just create as many as, as accurate as you can. And then you'll have to like hunt down a cryptologist or something of that nature to help you try to break the code. But yeah, you're in the midst of doing that. And you see that pulse come through right by your feet. In this case, it doesn't run down in the procession hall. It just goes back to where Dr. Andrews said the cold storage area was.
Huh. All right. Should we investigate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll hand Mr. Whitmire the torch. Say,
Who's leading the way?
yep. I'll have a road flare in one hand. Not lit, but
Yeah. So you go into this cold storage room, which is actually the chamber outside of this giant refrigerator. And the door is currently closed. And that's where Dr. Andrews had said all of these bodies were laying in some sort of translucent material, or not laying, but they were hanging on hooks. And they were covered in some sort of translucent bag.
okay.
Yeah. Are they still there?
Well,
So yeah, I guess
you're used to seeing it. It is a sand loss. You could offer warning that maybe it's not. It's up to you if you get the stomach for it.
It's a little disturbing.
Well, I think we should push forward anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
It might be good to at least know who we may be dealing with as these people. So taking stock of all the different bodies there.
Okay. So
I don't think
Who's
we'll find
opening the
anybody
door?
that will recognize. I would hope not, at least, because those skins are probably in use. But we definitely try and catalog as many faces as possible, or to remember in case we see them out in the real world.
But I'll open it and kind of step out of the way so that Whitmire can shine the light in there as I open it.
all right. So yeah, Whitmire, it is worth a sanity roll to see a corpse. Go ahead and throw that out for me.
I've seen
But-
plenty of those.
You have seen plenty. We should probably work in this next session on giving you the criminal starter package. I think that gives you some bonus against the sanity loss stuff for corpses and violent acts. But anyhow, so yeah, you're fine with it. It is somewhat disturbing to see that many bodies arrayed in such a way. And are you going to continue to stay outside the room? Or?
No, I'll go in
Okay.
to sand.
Yep.
Oof.
Yeah, maybe it's the clinical way in which they're displayed that distracts you from that much human death in one place. And it's not necessarily gruesome, but Dr. Andrews, this configuration has changed a little bit. Some of the bodies that you expected to be here are now gone, and it seems like new ones are hanging in their place.
Yeah, some of these bodies are different than what I saw.
Well, if we're right in our assumption that they're using these bodies for their purposes, then it makes sense that some would be in use at any given time.
Yeah, and now so I blacked out when the Dark Hunter came in, but I looked beyond it to see the
Right.
reality. Now, do I remember that part?
Yeah.
So then I'll say, and what reality they're in use in is a question that we don't have an answer to.
This is one of the first times he's acknowledged some sort of grand scheme. So,
But I will just look at the names of the ones that I see are different and see if anything stands out.
I would say, Mr. Monroe, that you are reminded that Mr. Blackman did have a certain amount of trepidation when it came to the Dark Hunter. So you're not certain if they would use them in that capacity, if at all, I mean, that's a pretty big inference, but it has been supposed, or in the back of your head, well, why would he caution against it,
yeah. Well, we know that at least one person that summoned it went insane.
Right.
And he seems surprised that I survived my encounter with him. So I'm going to assume that it's a dangerous thing to do.
Right.
And it seems like they used other people to summon it who would then themselves suffer the consequences instead.
All right, so you look at the names and none of them strike you as anybody Dr. Andrews, except for one Peter Fallon, a detective at the police department.
Oh, no. There's Detective Fallon here.
So
Remember how we used to think he was not a good guy?
yeah,
And then determined that he is?
yeah.
Well, his body's here now. Same, poison. Or,
Yeah. You quickly locate
nerve, yeah.
where this neurotoxin was delivered, or what you suspect is a neurotoxin.
And I'm absolutely certain that this body is not breathing, right?
Right.
Okay. Something for us to keep in mind. So you had mentioned that there were certain bodies that you expected to see here that aren't. Do we know which ones are missing that would at least stand out to him?
Yeah, Sammy Park, the outfielder, his body's gone. So is that of the nuns. I forget her name off the top of my head.
Yeah, what was her name?
Are there any kind of empty slots?
Yeah,
like
there's still spots where more bodies could be hung.
Well, like almost like in the array of bodies, are there ones that look like there should be something there that's missing? Like they've been taken out after they'd been placed?
I guess you could say that.
So just kind of thinking like if you were to say look at a shelf,
right,
and there were all the shelves were full except for like 2 or 3 spots.
Yeah.
It
doesn't seem like they can. These hooks seem to be on tracks, so they can move the bodies back and forth on the tracks. But
Linda Williamson was the nun.
And I do have to throw one little wrinkle in there pending a medicine roll, Dr. Andrews.
Okay.
Well, it's not extreme. What's your base skill?
83.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're absolutely certain that they're not breathing or alive, but you do recall a story, well, actually several stories you read in med school, particularly with children that had apparently frozen to death and were pronounced dead, but then revived. So you do know it's not well understood, but maybe there is a process in which they're just deeply frozen, still living. But that just kind of confuses you. But
yeah,
it is something you know. And Mr. Whitmire, you know Peter Fallon because you had found that he had taken some money from Francis Walsh.
Correct.
Right. So, but according to Detective Nichols, he had been on vacation.
Well, seems like he's not having that great of a time.
So yeah, I'll be mentally noting as many names as I can.
Okay.
And is there an exit to this chamber?
Yeah. And once again, Dr. Andrews can caution you that the sight beyond is more horrible.
What was the sight beyond?
The suspended animation chamber, or like a breeding pit.
There was like a breeding. It's pretty disturbing, but I think it's like a hatchery of some sort.
That would make
They're
sense.
in this liquid and they're suspended, and one of them was open.
Well, the dog.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I suppose if there were a race of lizard people that needed to continue to procreate, then that would be something. Perhaps take a look.
Yeah, I mean, you guys might see something that I didn't.
But yeah, on the hooks it didn't have people. Did they have any names on them or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
The names were kind of like a toe. It wasn't on their toe. It was around their wrist.
Okay.
But you could see the label through the translucent material that they were stored in.
Yeah.
So yeah, you carry on all the while descending. It's at a slope, so that stairs aren't necessary, but you do get the distinct impression that you are going ever downward, and you enter a large chamber from which are dangling, by your count, or Dr. Andrews' count when he was here, were 21 translucent yellow pods, and they're swaying slightly in a humid mist that pours from apertures in the ceiling. And you recall the plantation you had gone through with the stalks. It's the same mechanism, some sort of humidifying thing, because you feel the temperature change when you come in here. It's warmer. You can chew the air if you want to. And there's one of these pods is brown and leathery, and it's torn open and appears to be empty. And you just see the hints of dark shapes floating in the midst of the other pods.
Okay.
And that is also worth a sanity roll for the two of you that haven't been here.
Whew, that was a close one. Mr. Whitmire, let's see how you hold up. Oof.
Okay, so it's worth 1d6 sanity loss.
Do I take any or?
No, it's a 0 on success.
Okay.
Oh,
Dang.
This is like a day for max sanity loss.
okay. So with that 6 loss, you enter potentially a temporary bout of madness, but if you fail an intelligence roll, you are dumb enough not to put it together.
Oh, beautifully done.
Yeah. So the spectacle is just too odd, too inhuman, too out of this world for you to make any dire implications on what it is.
I figure
you just
it's like one of those, I don't know if it's like optical illusion where you're supposed to see one of two things, except you look at it
Right.
and you don't see either. And so you study it for a while, and then you just, oh well, and move on.
Yeah. Yeah, you still take the 6 loss, you just don't enter the temporary bout of madness. But again, you see that pulse run under your feet through this room to an exit beyond a further descent into the earth.
Well, should we follow it?
And this is a different way than I went, right?
This is where you were pulled out of the dream
Yeah.
the last time.
See, I suppose look for another exit.
Yeah, there's one beyond the hanging pods. That's where the pulse ran to
Yeah.
from behind you.
And there's no kind of mechanisms or anything in here that we can.
No, this everything in here seems distinctly biological. You know, that whatever process is occurring,
Okay.
you know, has that either it's like some kind of like an egg, a translucent egg, or some other thing. You know, maybe like a cocoon. You're not certain without the biological training to make heads or tails of it.
Okay. So yeah, then I guess there's not much for us to do.
Now, how many are in here?
There are 21 total, 20 that are occupied and one that was torn open.
One's torn open.
Was that torn open the last time you were here?
Yeah, there was one. Right, there was one
Yeah.
that was open. Like I'll go touch another one,
Okay.
like the sack or the glass, whatever it is that it's like. Feel what that material is.
Right hand or
Yeah,
left hand?
right hand.
Because I should mention, when you are in the stream, your hand isn't bandaged anymore
Oh, okay.
or wounded.
Yeah.
Well, it is. It has the appearance as though it was wounded long ago.
Yeah.
You know, it's reduced and covered in tight scar tissue.
Okay. Well, so yeah, whatever hand. I probably would have the crowbar in my right hand, so I'd use my left hand
All right.
to feel it.
If you manifest a lizard person back in McCracken's home, that would be an awesome way to end the session.
Yeah. The Kraken's just watching us, and suddenly they're.
Yeah. There's a.
Well, so let's get a power roll from you, Brandon. We're gonna get a power success one of these times.
I don't know if he's lucky
Right.
on failing these or unlucky.
Yeah.
Well, it is never certain whether or not you want to fail or succeed in Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
So you touch it, and nothing out of the ordinary happens, except that, you know, whatever's inside this serpent folk does seem to have some subconscious sense of its pod being touched, and it sort of floats close to the edge of it. And for those watching, you just see a half-lidded reptilian eye that is looking everywhere the way like like if you catch one time Brandon had fallen asleep on the couch, and he had fallen asleep with on his arm like this, and it was pulling up this eyelid, so I got to see his sleeping eye, and it's just looking like everywhere, not focusing on anything. So that's what you see, is just this unconscious eye movement. You know, so
Okay.
thanks for the
Yeah, that's a good image.
the mythos horror in the past.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God. But my kids do the same thing when they fall asleep. You just see the It's just sort of rolling around, not focusing on anything, but then it drifts back into the liquid and just becomes an indiscernible dark shape.
Yeah. Okay.
Roughly the size of a human, but reptilian.
And what does the material feel like? Does it feel like glass or something pliable?
It feels pliable.
Okay.
It feels like a leather almost, like a supple leather.
All right. Well, I don't know what I've learned here, but let's move on.
So beyond that room,
Unless we want to try to kill one.
I don't think we're quite there yet.
Okay.
Although we should remember this room for if we do decide to use the dynamite.
Yeah.
So beyond that room is the mirror of this one. And then again, as you guys have this descending horror of how many of these things are being bred or sleeping, you just go through pod room after pod room, but you see the flash occur again. It's a linear path through these pod rooms. And finally, when you exit, you've begun to lose count. You get the sensation that you've come into a very large underground space. You don't have that sixth sense of close earth around you, but that it's opened up in a way. The acoustics change. The way your feet hit the ground has an echoey quality to it. And you have this sense of vast distance. But at that moment, you see the burst of light come from behind you, from underneath your feet, but it also comes from elsewhere in this vast space, converging into a central point deep into the valley of this cavern. And for one brief moment, you see the translucent image of a 4-story structure of, maybe construction in the last century sort of appear at the center point. Now, you don't know if it disappears or if it just becomes dark and you can't see it anymore. But all of these flashes of light seem to converge on this space.
Do we recognize the building at all in any way? Does it look like it would fit into a city like Boston or...
Yeah, give me education roll. You have a bonus die on that one, Dr. Andrews.
You want that from all of us?
Yeah.
Go Jimmy. Making up for that failed education roll.
Yeah,
So
apparently.
87 versus 9. Yeah. So you all identify it as it would fit into Boston. And in your case, Mr. Whitmire, you haven't seen it personally, but you did see an image of it in a clipping that Wayne Nichols gave to you, and it was purported to be the clubhouse of Porcellian.
That's what I was wondering.
The barn?
The barn, yeah.
All right. As all I will say that then is that that looks like the barn. Because maybe we should have gone there.
Yeah.
Well, that definitely gives us a place to look after we make our visit to the sanitarium tomorrow.
All right. So the last image of this session, if you guys can imagine it, is you're standing on a ridge, an underground ridge, looking into this wide open space with this somewhat translucent version of the barn at the center of it. And when these flashes of light come in along which you think are the ley lines, it lights up beyond you, and we just see the 3 dark silhouetted images of our investigators standing on that ridge, looking down at it. And that is where we'll close today's session, and we'll pick it up next time. Thanks for playing, guys.
Nice.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
All right. Did we get any skill checks? There's a lot of failures, it felt like, today.
I did succeed on a couple.
This has been a Death Watch production. Thank you for listening.